If you've ever spent time in a framer, or really any design tool trying to wrangle responsive text,
Okay.
you know the feeling.
Oh, absolutely.
You build this gorgeous type scale on desktop, your H1 is perfect, your body copy just sings, and then you drag that corner of the window in and boom, everything just collapses.
That is the definition of designer whiplash.
Yeah.
You're basically forced to create three separate hand-tuned systems, one for desktop, one for tablet, one for
Yeah.
phone.
Right.
And you end up spending more time manually adjusting, 12 different font sizes and line heights than you do on the actual hierarchy. That duplication, that is pure cognitive load.
Exactly. And the whole point of these modern platforms is to streamline that work. So today we are doing a deep dive into the solution for this exact problem, the typescaaale plugin for Framer.
Mm-hmm.
We've been through the user guide, we've pulled all the key details, and our mission today is to give you the fastest, most effective path to mastering this tool. We're focusing on the configuration, the customization limits, and some of the surprisingly strict rules the guide lays out.
Well, and this tool, it's really a shortcut to being well informed about your own design system. It attacks that overload by standardizing 12 pre-configured styles and giving you that granular breakpoint specific control. It means you stop fighting the tool and you start focusing on the actual typography.
Okay, let's unpack this. We'll start at the very beginning, the bare bones entry process, because you can't get to the fancy stuff without getting in the door first.
Thankfully, it's a very standard two-step installation inside Framer. First, you open the plugins panel, you hit Browse Plugins, search for Typescale, and just click Install.
Easy enough.
Then the second step, you just go back to that same plugins menu and you open Typescale. It usually docks itself right on the right side of your canvas.
Okay, so that's simple, but here's where it gets really interesting. Right on that first load, before you've even typed a single thing, when that panel opens, what's the immediate critical info you see? Because the guide makes a huge deal about the trial limits.
That initial view is so crucial. It manages your expectations and really it sets your strategy. You immediately see your subscription status.
Yeah.
Are you on free, pro, or enterprise?
Right.
You see the main type system form, which is where all the work happens. But the third piece is the one you really need to watch, the free trials count.
And what's the strict limit there?
You get 2 free trials, just 2. And that's to test out the premium features. So the stuff that's normally only on pro or enterprise, like using more than 3 breakpoints or generating more than 5 text styles.
2 free uses of the premium stuff seems fair, but the guide has this crucial caveat, this one catch, about those trials that make strategic testing mandatory, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is the nugget of information you need to lock in right away.
Okay.
Those 2 free trials are strictly device-based, not project-based.
Wait, really? So starting a brand new Framer project doesn't reset the count?
Nope. Correct. The
Yeah.
trial counter is tied to your physical machine. So if you generate a system with, say, 6 text styles once on your laptop, that's 1 trial gone. If you do it again later on that same laptop, that's your second and final trial gone.
Wow. So you have to be really strategic about what you test. You can't just play around.
Exactly. You want to make those 2 generations really count. Pick an ambitious system to test drive.
That's a fantastic call out. It completely shifts the mentality from casual testing to strategic evaluation. Okay, armed with that, let's jump into the core 6-step workflow. Steps 1 and 2 seem like the easy warm-up: naming and font selection.
Step 1 is just admin. Give your system a clear name, something like e-commerce V2 typography, something you'll recognize.
And step 2, the font choice.
So step 2 gives you a split path. You can choose from over 1,000 Google fonts, which is massive, but you need an API key configured for that to work. Or you can pull directly from your Framer fonts. So any fonts you've already uploaded into your Framer project file.
I really appreciate that flexibility, especially for, proprietary brand fonts. But if I set a default font here, say Enter, and then later I realize I need a dramatic display font like Oswald for my H1, am I locked in?
Not at all. And that's the beauty of it. That initial choice is just your system default. You are totally free to override that choice for any individual style later on. So you can have Enter for 90% of your styles and then just Oswald for your hero heading.
Perfect. So we've got the name, the default font. That brings us to step 3, which feels foundational: setting your breakpoints. This is what tells the plugin where your styles need to shift.
Exactly. You have to define the 3 default breakpoints.
And just to remind everyone, what are the defaults most people will start with?
So the plugin suggests desktop at 1280 pixels, tablet at 124, and phone at 320. Now, you can change these. Maybe your desktop starts at 1440, but there is one absolutely crucial rule here.
I suspect this is where people get stuck.
It is. The rule is simple, but it's absolute.
Yeah.
All breakpoints must have unique values. You cannot have your tablet breakpoint set to the same pixel width as your desktop. The plugin will warn you, but it's a core technical requirement.
That makes total sense. The system needs clear boundaries. Okay, now step 4. Configuring the text styles themselves. The plugin starts you off with a dozen styles, right out of the box.
Yes, and that is the core of the cognitive load reduction. You're not starting from a blank slate. You get 12 pre-configured styles that cover pretty much every common UI element you'd need.
Lay out those 12 for us.
Okay, so you get the full heading hierarchy, H1 through H6. Then you have 3 core body styles. Body large, your standard default body text, and body small.
And the utility styles.
And then the utility styles for smaller things like caption, label, and button text.
That is a really comprehensive starting point. But what if my project only uses, say, an H1, an H2, and a couple of body sizes? I don't want to generate 6 empty heading styles.
Nope, and you don't have to. Next to each style name is a checkbox. The rule is simple. If you check it, it generates. If you uncheck it, the style gets ignored completely. So you can just cherry pick what you need.
That's great. It stops you from adding clutter to your Framer project.
Mhm.
Okay, so we've named the system, chosen a font, defined our device boundaries, and selected our styles. This is where the real design work begins, moving into deep customization.
Exactly. This is where typescaaale really earns its reputation. Granular control at the breakpoint level.
Talk us through that workflow. How do you configure one style across multiple devices?
It all comes down to tabs. Inside the panel, you can switch between desktop, tablet, and phone tabs. This lets you configure properties for a single style, let's say your H3, uniquely for that specific screen size.
So if I'm setting up my H3, I can make it 32 pixels on desktop. But then I switch to the tablet tab, and I can change that same H3 to be 24 pixels, and it won't miss with the desktop size.
Precisely. That is the entire secret sauce. That's the heavy lifting the plugin takes over.
Yeah.
The styles are linked by name, but their values are independent for each breakpoint. And for each style at each breakpoint, you have 7 core properties you can configure.
Okay, let's list those out, but let's add a bit of context for each one.
Sure. First, style name. This is customizable, so you can change H1 to something clearer, like hero heading primary.
Good for teams.
Yep. Second, font family. This is that style-specific override we talked about. Third is font size. And this is a big one. The guide confirms it accepts flexible values. You can use 48px or relative units like 2em or 3a.
That flexibility is huge for scalable systems. What's next?
Number 4 is line height. Same deal here, 1.5 e-meter, the unitless ratio 1.6, or a fixed 24px. Using unitless ratios here is often a best practice for true responsiveness.
Okay.
Number 5 is color, which has a color picker or supports hex codes. 6 is font weight, from 100, which is thin, all the way up to 900 black. And finally, number 7 is letter spacing, which accepts positive or negative values, like 0.5px or negative to 0.5px.
That is an immense amount of control. And the fact that you can use rem and em for size and line height, that is a massive win for designers trying to move beyond just static pixel values.
Agreed. So once you've set all these properties across your 3 breakpoints, you move on to the final 2 steps.
Step 5 is the safety check, right? The preview.
It's the critical review.
Yeah.
Use the preview section. And a little workflow tip here. Don't just check the desktop preview. You have to deliberately click through the desktop, tablet, and phone tabs in the preview to make sure your scale downs look right before you generate.
And step 6 is the final reward. Click Generate Type System.
Yep, it's fast. And it instantly populates your Framer project with all those custom responsive styles.
So what about managing custom styles? The guide mentions that if you need something that's not in the default 12.
It's easy. You could just add a new custom style and rename it to whatever you want, like quote or subtitle.
What about reordering them? If I put H4 before H3 by mistake, is that a pain to fix?
Right now, yeah, it's a little clunky. The guide says you have to delete the style and recreate it in the right sequence. Or you can just organize them later inside Framer's style panel after you generate. Just remember, you have to keep at least one style and able to generate anything.
Okay, we've covered the mechanics of the tool. Now let's talk about the art of typography design, because the user guide actually goes beyond just instructions. It gives explicit design recommendations. It tells you how to use type well.
This is where it stops being a manual and starts being a resource. It gives you concrete examples and suggested ranges, which is fantastic for avoiding that, analysis paralysis that a lot of designers face.
Let's start with the most basic element, sizing and hierarchy. What does it suggest?
For font size hierarchy, the goal is contrast, clear distinction. H1 is suggested at a pretty beefy 48 pixels or larger. But your standard body text, that needs to be super readable. So it should sit comfortably in the 16 to 18 pixel range. If you go below 16px for body copy, you start to hurt readability.
Right. And then captions and labels can be smaller.
Exactly. Those utility texts can scale down to 12 or 14 pixels.
Okay, we often obsess over font size, but I find the single most impactful adjustment for long form text is line height. What are the recommendations there?
So the guide specifies different ratios for different uses.
Hmm.
For body text where you need maximum readability, you should aim for a loose ratio, something like 1.5 to 1.6. It gives you that white space between the lines so your eye can track easily.
And for headings, which are much shorter.
Headings can and should be much tighter, like 1.2 to 1.3. Because they're short and punchy, they don't need that big buffer of white space. The key insight is the longer the line or the smaller the font, the higher your line height ratio should be.
That is such a critical distinction. Okay, next up, font weight. What does the guide tell us?
The philosophy is all about visibility and emphasis. For your main body text, the standard is 400, which is regular. If you go lighter, you risk it being hard to see, especially on lower quality screens.
And for headings?
For headings, you want to aim higher for emphasis 600 or 700, so semi-bold or bold. That's what gives your page its structure.
Okay, and the final detail, letter spacing. This is where the rules seem to kind of invert depending on the text size.
Exactly. This often surprises people. The recommendation is to use negative letter spacing, about negative 0.5px to NACAS 1px for very large headings, like your H1s and H2s. It's an optical correction. Big type can look too loose, and tightening the letters a little makes it feel more cohesive.
So we're pulling the letters closer together for impact.
Precisely. For standard body text, you just keep it at 0px. The only time you should really use positive spacing like 0.5tx to 1px is for text set in all caps, maybe in label or something, just to increase legibility.
That's a powerful set of guardrails to design within. And I assume the guide's overarching note on responsiveness is just scale everything down.
Pretty much. You have to scale text sizes down for smaller screens, but while maintaining those proportional readability ratios. It's about testing your ratios, not just your absolute pixel values.